Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. I'm SocietySucks and today I'm checking out World War I by Mitsi Studio. I know a lot about World War I, I've watched multiple videos on World War I before, you can find them on my channel, but let's see what Mitsi has to say on the subject.
World War I, also known as the First World War, or the war to end all wars.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, it
didn't end them.
Or named the Great War, which makes absolutely no sense, but fits beautifully between good and awesome. The Great War basically started with one
The Great War, nothing great about war.
Flag, who fragged a guy in a car, who basically started with one dude with a Bosnian Lives Matter flag, who fragged a guy in a car who happened to be the Archduke of Austria. Well,
Bosnian Lives Matter.
The Archduke survived the attack, but was dumb enough to keep driving around trying to look cool.
And then he got killed.
Shortly after, he was shot and killed by someone else. This pissed off Austria-Hungary, who teamed up with Germany, Bulgaria, the Ottoman Empire, and a few more countries that, well, no one really gives a shit about. Serbia basically teamed up with roughly half of Europe and half of, actually, the rest of the world.
Yeah.
There is your first hint about who's going to win this thing.
They teamed up with
Germany had
Russia,
a bold idea
France.
called the, oh my god, Schlieffen Plan, to quickly invade France and win the war. Second spoiler alert.
Which did not happen.
The First World War is known for its static battles with insane high casualty rates, often without significant gains for either side.
Basically just massive human wave
The first
attacks.
military campaign was launched in 1914 by Austria-Hungary against the Kingdom of Serbia. After fucking up 3 invasion attempts, Serbia
They were
was
very
successfully
incompetent.
invaded in 1915. Meanwhile, in the West, the Germans initiated their Schlieffen Plan. Basically, the idea was to invade Belgium where they expected little resistance.
Yeah, but they
Use
got
their road and rail
quite a bit
network
of
to move
resistance.
all their shit, or Scheiße, straight into France. After which, they would stampede hundreds of miles south to the Swiss border and eat, oh, who's writing this rubbish? Cheese fondue. There's a couple of problems regarding the plan that are probably worth mentioning. For starters, the Belgians put up a fierce fight, likely due to their neutrality.
They didn't just
and
give
Germany
up.
shitting all over them by invading, triggering Britain to send their expeditionary army to fuck up their plans even more. In addition, the Belgian road networks suck ass today, let alone in 1914. So you can imagine the Germans were forced to move their 250,000
I wasn't aware of that.
troops mostly by rail, and of course, the Belgians continued shitting on German planning by blowing up their own
destroy the
rail
rails.
infrastructure, which they still haven't fixed today. Before even entering France, Germany was under the presumption that it was going to fight the Western powers first and deal with Russia just a little bit later.
Nope.
They reckoned 6 weeks for Russia to mobilize their troops, which took the Russians 15 days. Just
Yeah,
a
they
little bit
got
off
a lot
about
faster than
a month.
expected.
The result was 4 years of trench warfare in the West, with massive battles to break the stalemate. In the
A lot
East,
of war
most
crimes
battles were
too.
fought with more ability to maneuver. Even armored trains were used for offensive operations. Some of the largest battles taking place in the West was the Battle of Verdun, the Battle of the Somme, the Third Ypres campaign. Yes, there were 2 more, and yes, lots of people died.
Never heard of this one.
The German 1918 Spring Offensive, and eventually the Battle of Amiens that led to the end of the war. During those times, both sides developed new weapons, with poisonous gas being arguably the most controversial. The Battle
Pretty
of
sure
Verdun
Hitler
is the
almost got
longest
taken out
battle
by
in
poisonous
military
gas.
history, beginning on February
Mustard
the 21st
gas, to be
through
specific, I
December
think.
18th, 1916. The initial German advance brought some successes. One of them was the capture of the French Douaumont fortress without firing a single shot. Perhaps the French soldiers were too busy eating their baguettes and drinking Le Cognac.
Well, shit. Time to surrender, I guess.
Initially, the Germans planned to hold the high grounds west of Verdun, while the Allies kept sending reinforcements. This was done via a supply road that was bombarded intensively throughout the battle. The losses mounted on both sides, and after 5 months, the Germans had to divert troops to the Battle of the Somme. Moving over to the seas, most battles were fought between German U-boats and the Allied navies. At the Battle of Jutland, the surface fleets of both sides met and exchanged fire. Germany sunk more ships, but still shat their lederhoses because of Britain and because of, well, too many ships. They withdrew their fleet and kept it in the port for the rest of the war. Back on
That was
land,
pretty much the only
Somme
major
was
sea
becoming
battle.
even deadlier than Verdun. The first day, the British alone suffered more than 57,000 casualties. The Allied planners were too optimistic about breaking through.
Think about that. 57,000 people in one day. And that's just the British. If losses like that happened to any side in a war today, the war would be pretty much over just because of those losses. Just because of that one day. I mean, can you imagine? Let's take the Russia-Ukraine war. Can you imagine if one side suddenly just lost 57,000 soldiers within just one day? The entire front would probably collapse.
Through German defenses, a costly lesson by anybody's standard. By now, the British
But here this was
started
just
to deploy
normal.
different types of tanks. A male-classed variant with 6-pounder guns and a female version armed with machine guns rolled over the battlefield. A non-binary tank with no guns was also in development because... okay, no, I can't do it. Of course it wasn't. The whole world was killing each other. They weren't crazy.
Yeah.
A year
Why would you
later,
make a
the
tank
French
with no
Army
guns?
introduced the Renault 17 tank with a full rotating turret. The first tank that could do a 360 no-scope. The Germans suffered less casualties than the Allies because they were mostly on the defensive after their initial invasion. That's why they pimped up their trenches a bit more to include massage salons and jacuzzis. Well, maybe not those last.
Yeah, of course,
Still,
sure.
they did look better. In 1917, Germans were wearing their happy socks because the Russian Revolution ended the war in the east, and Germany could now transfer many divisions to the west to support their upcoming spring offensive. In the same year,
Yeah, but then the US
joined
also
war.
got involved.
So the German offensive was an all-in situation for Germany to save themselves from US intervention. In the skies above, more and more planes emerged. At the start of the war, most planes flew scout missions, but as the war progressed, these planes were getting involved in combat missions. At first, pilots drew pistols to shoot at each other, and bombs were carried on a pilot's lap before being thrown out.
Seriously?
Jesus. These Wild West
That's how
pistol
it
shootouts
started?
were transformed to dogfights between fighter planes and bombers to go for the role for strategic bombing. Far down below, the Third Battle of Ypres, or Battle of Passchendaele, unfolded. Basically, another great battle with great losses around another tiny-ass village. Except this time, all the fighting took place in 3 feet of mud. Not pleasant at all.
Oh god.
Meanwhile, outside of Europe, battles were fought between Allied colonial-controlled countries in Africa and German-occupied territories. However, most European countries did not give a fuck about Africa, and even argued to collaborate to keep repressing the indigenous population. Does that sound a bit like
Wow.
racism to you? Speaking of racism, did you hear about the Ottomans and the Armenians in World War I? Just a question.
No.
No controversial references intended, of course. Now, on to a more serious
What?
question. No controversial references about the Ottomans and the Armenians in World War I. Just a question. No controversial references intended, of course. Now, on to a more serious note. The Ottomans also threatened the British Army by
Oh
trying to
wait,
butt plug.
I think I've heard of the Armenian genocide. Okay, I just checked, and yeah, the Ottoman Empire committed a genocide on the Armenian people during World War I, so that's what that was referencing.
Plug the Suez Canal. In the north, they advanced through the Caucasus to fight the Russian Empire. In East Asia and the Pacific, the Germans were also bullied by the Japanese, who occupied vast territories from them. And yes, Germany and Japan were not best buddies yet, because this is the First
Not
World
yet.
War and not the Second. Minor detail. Back in the West, the German army made initial
Just wait
gains with
20
their spring
years.
offensive and even came within 100 kilometers of Paris. They brought in some giant railroad guns and fired off a few shots at the city center to piss off the city folks. By now, the German operation faced logistical challenges. Fortunately, they had experience with their Schlieffen plan. So they, did not do anything, did not fix anything, and the entire plan went into the shitter once again. To make matters worse, the Allies transformed the front line into a clustering web fight of trenches. What followed was the Battle of Amiens, being part of the 100-day offensive that eventually moved the Allied troops beyond the heavily defended Hindenburg line. By now, only Germany was left fighting the Allies, and the morale in the German army
This
at
was where it
point
pretty
was,
much ended.
shall we say, pretty bad. With their previous failed spring offensive and mounting losses now exceeding those of the Allies, timing was everything for Germany to end the war as soon as possible. In a dense forest on the outskirts of Compiègne, the German delegation met with a few important-looking Allied folks to sign the armistice. The signing eventually led to the Treaty of Versailles, a piece of paper basically stating Germany was going to pay big time for 4 years of shit, give up a big chunk of German territory to pissed off neighbors, and finally pinky promise to never—
It's funny, isn't it? Germany is not even the one who started World War I, but they're the ones who got punished the most for it.
start another world war, especially one that is promoted by a screaming Austrian guy with a square moustache. The armistice was signed on the 11th of November 1918 at 5:45 a.m. and came into effect at 11 o'clock the same day, which is a bit of a shame for particularly one soldier who died 1 minute before 11. Again, timing is everything.
I'm sure there were many who died just a few minutes before it officially ended. That must be the worst. Think about it. You survived for at least a few days, if not weeks, in the trenches. You're thinking, oh, the war's gonna end today in just a few hours. I'm gonna go home, back to my wife and kids. And just a few minutes before the war ends, you get killed. That is literally just God showing you the middle finger. Anyway, yeah, World War I sucked. It was terrible. World War II was even worse. And what's more to say really about it? War sucks. It's a bad thing. It's not good. People die. People suffer. It just sucks. So yeah, anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. If you want to see more reactions, check out this video right here. And with that, I'll see you in the next video.